This is the Starlight Express Alumni Podcast.
Hi, I am a Starlight alumni. My name is Colin Bruce Munro Wood. I used to go by Colin Munro in my acting days, and I played the part of Rusty for a year from 1991 to 1992. Lucky enough to work with a lot of awesome people like Claudia Bradley and Stevie Woods.
Well, Colin, man, thank you so much for coming on here and spending this time with me. We're going to have some fun. We're going to share, and we're going to share your story. And it's totally unscripted, and everyone that's been watching this show knows that. And of course, guys, if you want to find out more about Colin, right below, I'll have information right below on his page there. Just reach out to him. Let him know which part of this that you loved and that you liked, that really resonated with you. So, Colin, let's go to the first. When did you first find out about Starlight Express?
It is a good story. Well, I actually first saw the show on Broadway, I believe in 1989, probably right before it closed. But Sean McDermott was in the show at that time. And maybe even some of the people I worked with in Germany were even there. I have no idea. Andrea McCardle was in the show as well when I saw it. However, at that point, neither did I know or have any idea that I would even go out for a show like that. It just seemed like a spectacle to me, not like a musical when I first saw it. I thought it was pretty cool, but it didn't even resonate with me the first time I saw it on Broadway. I don't know why. But funny enough, I was auditioning for shows in the fall of 1990, and I auditioned for two things, the Gold Musicals of Broadway that toured Europe and Starlight Express. I went to the Starlight audition. I almost didn't go, however, because I have always been one to procrastinate in my life. Until recently, I've changed that, and it's actually become a big help in my life, but we'll get to that at some other time. So I was laying in my bed. The alarm went off. I hit it probably 3 times. I thought to myself, I was in New York City. I thought, man, roller skating. I can roller skate a little bit forwards. I used to do it as a teenager, but I don't know. It seems kind of silly, and it's probably not a big deal being in Europe. Probably won't pay a whole lot. You know, it'll be some low budget version of what I saw on Broadway is what I thought. But I don't know what happened, but something just initiated me to get out of bed and just go down there and go for it for the heck of it. So I showed up for the audition, and luckily they let us sing first. That was definitely a good thing. I sang, and it's funny because I happened to sing How Am I Supposed to Live Without You, which was one of Stevie Woods' biggest hits in Germany that he did with his band, Night Train. So, you know, the directors and everybody, they all were very familiar with the song, with Stevie's version of it. And I finished the song, and I thought they were pretty happy with it. And they did ask me to come back for the dancing skating section, which was next. Got through all the skating okay. I really didn't know how to skate backwards that well, but forwards I had no problem at all. So I could show that I could move on skates. But then when it came to the dancing on the skates, I made sure I stood in the very back, for one thing, because dancing was never my forte. I'm good when I learn to dance, but when it comes to auditions, I look like a screwball out there when I'm trying to pick up these moves so quickly, you know? Mm. But I thought I had it all down, and as we were going through it, practicing it, I was able to do it and do the moves as slowly as they were. But once they said, all right, let's do it and go for it, luckily, they didn't break us down in small groups, and they just did one large group. And I ended up starting it and then not even be able to remember what the moves were. So I stood up in the back on my skates and just smiled through the whole thing. And it was over. They said, okay, everybody just hang out for a while, and we're going to call names of those we are going to see again. I went back, took the skates off, got my shoes on, put my leather coat on, put my bag over my shoulder, and I was the first one standing at the door frame waiting to walk out when I didn't hear my name called. Last name Wood, I ended up being the last name called, and I was completely shocked because at that point, I didn't know what role I was good for. I couldn't remember the show very well. I didn't remember the role of Rusty much. So I had no idea what I would really be good for, but I just went. And that is the beginning of it. And then the other second part to that is that I ended up getting Gold Musicals of Broadway. And the day I was leaving for Europe to get on the plane, I had a cab waiting outside my place. And I didn't have a phone. I had a pager. I had no phone in my place. I had one room with a bathroom and a little burner that I cooked on, So I got a call from the front desk because our calls would come in on the payphone downstairs. And he said, "You have a call from Germany." And I said, "No way." I said, "Why would somebody be calling me from Germany? I have no idea." And he said, "They say they're with Starlight Express." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I was like, "My bags are packed and my cab's outside." I said, "Can you run outside and tell the cabbie I got to take a call quick?" So he went out. I went to the payphone, took the call, and they asked me if I was interested in playing first cast Rusty. And I said, "What does that mean? Am I like the understudy?" I'd never heard first cast before, And they said, no, you'll be the star of the show. And I was like, "Well, that would be cool." I said, "I'm about to leave right now to go do a tour." And they said, "Well, we don't need you until March," I think it was. And we could take care of that problem for you. And I said, "Okay, that would be neat." I said, "How much does it pay?" I mean, I was kind of rude. Yeah. And when they told me, I think my jaw probably fell off the phone and hit the floor. And I said, "Please do whatever you can to get me out of my contract when you need me." So I went and did the tour for 3 months or 2 months, and they took care of everything. My replacement, my plane flight from Sweden. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Wow, that's perfect. I love it. And the Starlight Express, the power and influence that it has, and Andrew Lloyd Webber make things happen, makes the world turn.
I truly believe that, to tell you the truth.
That's powerful. Yeah. That's awesome. That's an awesome story. I love that. I love it. Okay, so you get hired, and you said 3 months later you end up going to Germany. You went there. You're there. First day of rehearsals. What was that experience like?
Well, let me reverse to the night before first.
Okay.
When we all get to see the show from up in that corner of the balcony for the first time, and apparently I did what so many other Rusties have done across the spectrum of Starlight in the world. And at that point, I went into the office after the show, and I very humbly said, "You're going to have to send me home. There is no way I can do this show. I cannot skate like that. I cannot sing high C's while I'm skating." I said, "There's no way I can do this." And I was it Regina, I guess, chuckled and said, "Oh, Colin, we've heard that from every Rusty." And I said, "Okay, I'll give it a try." And so, yeah, the first day of rehearsals were pretty tough. Those skates hurt, and I think we had skates on the first day, probably in the hallway, if I remember right. And the one thing I remember is Michael Fraley yelling out loud, "My God, boy, you are bow-legged."
Too funny. So you started. So how did they start you off with the skating? Obviously, you got with Michael Fraley and started doing the carpet skating and all that fun stuff. And
yes.
So share with everyone that little piece of that journey. What did your feet go through? Were there any injuries beyond the normal ouchie boo-boos that we get?
Right. Yeah, I had a few of those. I had a surgery after I got back from New York too, on one of my toes. My memory, I mean, we're talking almost 30 years ago, so my memory's fading. And I have Parkinson. I'll mention that quickly. So some of my memory is not there. But what I do mostly remember is the hallways and the skate room. I remember, I think, starting there first and just learning how to simply skate one foot after another down the hallway. And I know that eventually it didn't take long for us to get on the stage. And I remember that some of the first things that we started doing were very tiny little, bowl curves going, and I'm sure you remember, just those little curves. So I would say probably after a week, if I remember right, my feet really started to hurt a lot. I had some abrasions and bleeding and things of that nature. I had issues with, breathing while skating, because of course that show takes, I think more than any show I've ever done, and I've done 30 or 32 shows in my past, it takes much more breath control than any other show you could do, I would imagine, unless you're a dancer dancing at the same time and singing.
On roller skates.
Yes, come on. What I did in the show was nothing compared to what most of the people had to do in that show, and I was humbled and always starstruck by the talent, the amazing talent of people in the show. But I went through some foot problems. It hurt for a while, but I'm pretty sure that by the time the show opened 3 months later, my cast opened, I had no more foot problems at that point. The only two injuries that occurred throughout the show is at some point halfway through my run, I believe I landed on my left shoulder in skate warm-up, diving over all the girls in front of me because they had fallen after we came off a bowl, and I didn't want to fall on them. So I pushed off with a toe stop and went flying over them off the side bowl and then down the next bowl and landed on my left shoulder. And I went on into the show that night and just couldn't really get that arm up very well. And then the other injury, unfortunately, was at the end of my run. I had hurt my ankle a few nights before my final show.
Yeah, I remember.
And I didn't get to do the final show. It was upsetting, but luckily they did allow me to go on and do toe stops that night, which was a blast.
Yeah, I remember that changeover. So what was your opening night like? You had rehearsed, you got the show, and you're in a show that you didn't think you could really do, got those high Ds, and your body healed up enough, opening night. And what do you remember?
Being out of breath, still a lot. I think it took me a month to strengthen my body and my agility and all of that stuff. To not have to worry about breathing, getting through the show, or running out of breath when I was singing. So the first night, my biggest concern was running out of breath while I was trying to sing and skate at the same time. But the first thing I remember, standing at the top of the third floor of the the bridges, and probably trembling inside. I was 22, but I had never done anything that big, or anything of that nature at all. I played sports all my life, so it was kind of, in an athletic way, I was comfortable with it. But just the whole combination of performing on skates, being a star of the show, which was nerve-wracking, and combined with working with a new cast and with people that I'd never experienced being around, other nationalities. So I believe all of that was in my mind that night. I was a nervous wreck, but once that first song started and the guys were down there, I just concentrated on watching them and getting into it. And by the time we started our descent down the first ramp, the nerves went out the door. And it's always been that way for me. Once I get into character and I start, nerves go out the door, because it's like a little switch goes off.
Now, when you sung the sequence, Starlight Sequence, on that opening night, do you remember what you felt? What was that experience for you? I found this very interesting. I thought I'd ask you this question because a lot of Rusties have a take on that.
Okay. Well, to be honest, it was always one of my two favorite parts of doing the show. I love singing with Stevie, but I love the song. It's very emotional, very powerful. And the first thing I started doing the first night, and I did it every night of the show, was I made the Starlight, for me, my grandmother, who passed away when I was 12 years old, and I was extremely close with. I did things for her as I was growing up because she was in a wheelchair, and I played organ for her, did a Sunday service for her in her apartment. I cooked her meals, helped her bathe, and, you know, helped her get in and out of her wheelchair. And when she passed away when I was 12, I wasn't, you know, allowed to go and see her on her last day. And to me, she was always an inspiration as a kid. I lived a young, tough life. I had a tough family life, and she was always the one thing that inspired me. And so for me, for my whole run, I thought of her as being my Starlight. And so I believe that that was probably always the most sensitive song that probably touched the audience on my part, I would imagine, even more so than Starlight Express. And then once you stand up and the lights come on and everything's swirling and that big green thing of haze was over me and Stevie's powerful voice is bellowing throughout the theater, and I'm matching him, and the harmonies are just so crisp and clean, and you can almost feel the audience right there in your soul with you, you know. And I would always get, and especially the first night, I just had this amazing, magical feeling and chill, and a good chill come over me all at the same time. And, and then the response at the end of it was like nothing I had ever experienced in my life at that point. And I knew I'd accomplish getting somewhere that I never thought I would get in my life, and somewhere that my dad had hoped for all his life for me, because he didn't get to do what he wanted with his musical career. And he was kind of living through me. So, I mean, God, so much of that came all at once that first night when I was doing the Starlight sequence.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing it. I remember I shared with Steven Skeels and some of the other Rusties that I remember going up, you know, up watching the show from the balcony, you know, the famous place where they sometimes forbid us to be there.
Yeah.
But I would watch, and it never fails that on that sequence, the lights and all that happening, I always got lost. And even now, I get emotional. And it's this one thing I found with most of my interviews with us, we're talking about this, just the powerful emotional impact, and how and at the time, you know, I didn't want anyone to know that, you know, because, you know, it's a show, musical on skates and stuff. But for me, it was such a spiritual and emotional experience for it, because I got lost in the story of it.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why I you know, every time I speak to a Rusty now, someone did Rusty, I'm curious about what.
Well, two things to tie into that. Can you hear me still?
Oh, I can hear you great.
Okay. Two things to tie into that is that the character of Rusty and the story of the little train that could was my life story as a child. I was always the outcast, the last picked for things, chased home from the bus, you know, picked on, and without going into the home stuff, things went on at home too, you know. And so I guess throughout my life, I always just felt like I was battling to survive. And so for me, and to be honest, I don't think it hit me while I was doing the show that year how deeply Rusty was rooted in me, or I was rooted in Rusty. I only, as I've aged and become wiser and thought about my past and dealt with it, have I come to realize how much that role mirrored me and mirrored my life. And then there was a second good point, and I don't remember it at this point. But yeah, I've lost my train of thought at this point.
I know you remind me, as you was sharing, one of the alumni said that if I would have known how much of an impact Starlight made in my life when I was doing the show, I would have paid a lot more attention. And for me, I think that's why this podcast for me, and I tell everyone this, and I'm going to share this with you. It's a healing process for me. It's a healing for me to do this because I've invested. We all invested blood, sweat, tears, broken bodies in a show that at the time I didn't know the power of it. And in hindsight, oh my gosh. And I'm glad I paid a little bit of attention. And I remember my first time, my last time on stage, because I was basically a Rocky. I was one of the Rockies.
Yes.
And I was on as Rocky 2. And I knew right before I went out for Right Place, Right Time that was going to be my last time ever doing it. And I knew it was my last. I knew it. And it's, the music came on. La, da, da, da. Right before I knew I'm holding back there, and I'm saying this is my last time. And I'm getting goosebumps now.
Yeah,
I'm glad I had those moments, and so I really do appreciate you for sharing that because the power of it. And of course, if we knew back, how does that go? We knew now what we
didn't know then. Things could be so different. Well, now you reminded me what I wanted to say. That show did affect me so deeply that to this day, often I still have very deep dreams about doing the show still. Sometimes it's that I can't remember my words or I forgot to put my skates on. They're always dreams where something's going on that's got me stressed in the dream because when you went on to do that show, you always wanted to do such a perfect job for the audience because that German audience was phenomenal almost every night. And of course the fans that were always outside, you wanted to please them because they were always so appreciative. As you were saying, it is a very deeply emotionally affecting show. And I'm going to be honest here. This is going to shock some people maybe, but I carried the wrong kind of attitude when I was there playing Rusty in Germany. And I'm honest about that. I'm almost 50 this year. And I look at the past and I was one of these guys that was the angry young man with the chip on the shoulder because of my childhood. And I carried that into the German show, unfortunately. And it affected my relationships with management, with some of the people in the show. I got along with quite a few of them, and I had a lot of friends there. But if I could go back now and be the person I have become now, I believe that it would have been even a more incredible experience. Maybe no more meaningful because it's just still so meaningful to me now, much more now than it was then, as you are mentioning. I did not appreciate it enough when I was there. And I can tell anybody who might watch this that's doing it or coming to do the show, appreciate it with all your heart because it is something you will remember all your life.
Yeah, I remember when I first did in Germany, I just like you, I came first time out of the country from New York. I'm an American in a new country. Yep. I'm an American, that's it. I had that attitude, a really bad attitude.
Yeah.
And so then I did the US tour, then I came back, did Germany again, and still a bad attitude, but a better appreciation for being a different country.
Yeah.
But I still had a bit of an attitude as an actor.
Yes.
And then I left and came back and did it again 2 years in a row. And
that's great.
I came back with a different mindset. So I had an opportunity to learn, and I came back, and so I had the opportunity where I took the lessons.
Yeah.
And that's why my last show, I really appreciate that moment. But you're absolutely right. And and thank you for speaking to, because alumni and current cast members are loving this because they're getting insight into, because they're standing on the shoulders of those of us that came before them.
Yes.
And I've spoken to cast alumni that were original cast members in the London production.
Wow.
And so talking to them, I stood on their shoulders. You stood on these shoulders, and then now the current members are standing on our shoulders. And to hear what we went through, and because the way they're taught, the way they're trained now, and Michael Fraley, the way he trains them now is based on everything that they've learned from Arlene to Andrew.
Wow.
From our experiences, from our brokenness, the stage not being set right and having to be set right. What's the perfect stage? They have it down to a perfection.
Yep, I bet.
And the singing, the dancing, who should be hired? How should they hire them? So it's no accident that they saw you as the Rusty. When I hear about you and why they chose you to be that Rusty, it was perfect. They needed that underdog. They needed that person that can relate in that way. And so for me, it's like, my goodness, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That this show gets to that place where they know what they're doing and they put the right people in there. And I'm so proud to be part of it.
They sure do.
You know,
I can't get enough of the show still. I'm always on YouTube looking up the new Rusties and Pearls and the new music. I was so lucky. I was living in Germany for a few months in 2017, and I was lucky to see the English performance on March 28th or 29th of that year. And I mean, the talent is just phenomenal now. These kids can sing their lungs out. And I mean, I didn't see a mistake anywhere on stage. Not anything in the voices, the movement, the skating. I mean, it was just perfect from beginning to end. And they were so in touch with their characters. I told Jeffrey, who played Rusty in 2016-17, I believe, who I met there. I told him, I said, your Rusty is so deep and personal. And I had to be honest in saying that I felt like looking at him and comparing to the Rusty I did, which was when the show was still first starting out, mine was more robotic, I think. And Michael Fraley did try to work on that with me by getting me to read about trains and things of that nature, and try to really imbibe what a train is, and when if a train was alive in a train station, what it would really be going through and feeling. And I never, sometimes but not always, got that connection between myself and Rusty the steam engine. Wow. But these guys now, the Rusties I watch, it's like they were just born and bred to play the role.
You know, and a lot to be said with the creative team having done this for so many decades, like Stephen Rosso and all the, I know Debbie's retired now, but all the creative team as they grow, and a lot of them were performers on the stage, like Stephen Rosso and now Michael Wand, all these guys. They know what it takes to get on that stage. They know what it takes to survive if you choose to do 8 shows a week, which is what I chose to do. I didn't take the show off. And so what it takes to accomplish that. And so now, and what it takes to do all that and then tell the story.
For sure.
Be honest and true to the story being told, and tell it as often as possible as if you're telling it for the first time. Right. You know, and they know what it takes and I'm so amazed I'm so glad a show like this can go so long, because that can happen. I know Reva had said that she says, you know, when my opening night, you know, usually I like to be in a show 3 months to 6 months before I have people come see me.
Wow.
Some of us don't have that luxury.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, but I get it, because you want to make sure you're able to be true and then just let go. And not think of anything. And so, but I really do appreciate you for sharing. Now, I know you've already shared a couple lessons, life lessons that you draw from your experience with Starlight, some powerful ones. So which one would you want to highlight right now for everyone, the most powerful life lesson that you would draw from Starlight that you would like to highlight?
I would say that my experiences with working with highly professional cast members from different countries after the fact, after I was gone, was the most profound, had the most profound effect upon me. Remembering my relationships, remembering how we interacted on stage, off stage. I really took that and used it for the rest of my life to continue improving on how I communicated and worked with other people in theater as I moved along. I guess I would like to say that along with that on the same level would be that never convince yourself that you can't do something, because you'll always be able to amaze yourself and you can probably accomplish anything you want to.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Now, I know Starlight is an important part of my life. It's not my whole life. It's not our whole life, but it's an important part. So there are things that I'm doing these days that I have a passion for. You know, I have a martial arts school with over 300 students. I've been running for 20 years. I have other businesses that I run. I have my wife. Our anniversary is the same anniversary of Starlight because we got married. So whatever Starlight's anniversary, it's ours, even though our anniversary is before them. And we have our kids. So a lot of great things going on in my life, things I'm doing now.
Yes.
I'm proud of. So what are things you're doing now that's a passion for you? Share with everyone what you're doing, what you're into, and what you love right now.
Sure. Starting about 5 years ago, I decided I was going to go back to something I used to love doing when I was much younger, which was writing. So I probably earlier than I should have, I published a couple of short story novellas on Amazon. I can look back on them now and see that they need a lot of editing and reformatting, which I am going to be doing with one story because a gentleman wants it for a short story collection book he's publishing in December. So I've got to fix it up and clean it up and give it to him. But I have spent the last 4 years learning all about computers, all about SEO, web content, how to write that, web development, how to create websites, blogs. I started my own blog a few years ago called Citizens Freedom. And I just continued to find places on the internet where I could hone my writing, find different topics and areas to write on. And currently I write on Medium. I used to write on Steam at Nium. I have my own blog. And now I work with a couple freelance sites, and I'm writing all sorts of things. This week I finished projects on a dental website where I had to write content on health and wellness for Africans. I am currently writing a science manual on CRISPR-Cas9 genetic manipulation for a woman in the UK, a scientist in the UK. Last night, overnight, I was up all night and this morning, so I actually haven't slept since yesterday morning. Last night I wrote some articles on what is nuclear terrorism and how does radiation spread to objects. Those were two different small articles.
Wow.
And today, right now, I am currently finishing up a more analytical type article on stocks and tech stocks right now, which is going to be due in a couple hours, a few hours. So I am an advocate now. I write for social justice. I write for people's rights. I write for global unity and love, to spread the message that we all are human beings, that we all are one. We all come from one place. We are all the same. And for us to exist and continue to exist for eternity here on Earth and wherever else we end up going in the universe, and whoever else we end up meeting in the universe, in my opinion, I think we have to be one world, one race, and all need to love each other and break down the barriers.
Well, you know what? You're not alone in that. So I appreciate you that. And what we'll do, and I'll speak to everyone that's listening right now or watching, right below will be Colin's links, and I'll have information there. Any videos will be down there. So everything down there.
Thank
Reach out
you.
to Colin, follow him, go to Medium, and he'll be easy to find. And because he's into SEL, so
yeah, you can Google Colin BM Wood or Colin Bruce Monroe Wood, and there's like 2 to 3 pages of all sorts of sites
awesome.
that I'm on.
That's great. Now, those of you that they're not geeks like Colin and I, SEO is search engine optimization, so he's optimized the ability for you to find him. So bravissimo.
I'm still humble.
Yeah, but hey, it's thank you so much for spending this time with me, and not too bad for someone that had nothing to say.
Yeah, it's hard for me to come up with things, but if I get good questions like yours, it's easy, and you made it easy, and I so appreciate you're even asking me to do this. It's a beautiful thing, and I hope somebody can get something out of it.
They will, and we are brothers and sisters because of Starlight.
We all are.
As a martial artist, especially in the jiu-jitsu world, once we participate in an endeavor, we all become brothers and sisters. And
Always.
Starlight is like that because even beyond the training mats, and I've broken myself there, it's nothing like we said earlier, the work that we put in on that stage for Starlight Express, for the fans who continue to this day to encourage me, encourage us, inspire us, and just to motivate us. We're all brothers and sisters. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your adventure and your journey. And
yes,
and I always believe this, that whatever you have to say, there's one person out there that needs to hear exactly what you said, Colin.
Yes.
And so just that one person that's going to send a ripple in the world. So thank you. So I want
butterfly effect.
Yeah, I want you to have the last word. So what's the last word you want to say to the fans and to the other alumni?
I miss all you alumni that I worked with, and even the ones I become friends with on Instagram and Facebook that are doing shows now or have done them over the years. I love you all so much, and fans, to this day, I still appreciate all the love you gave me, all the gifts, all the attention, the lunches, the breakfast together. It's a time in my life that has never occurred again in that manner, and I will always hold it close to my heart forever.
Colin, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You have a great day, and we'll definitely stay in touch. And
yes,
if you think of anything, just send it to me, and I'll share it with everyone on this page. And
thank you.
Thank you so much, buddy. Have a great day.
You too, Peter.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this episode of Starlight Express Alumni Podcast. Next week, I will get together with another alumni. Be sure to subscribe. You can subscribe right here on the website at starlightexpress.club. We are definitely on the iTunes and Stitcher, and we're looking to get on the other platforms, so make sure you check there, subscribe there, and stay connected. If you are Starlight alumni, please be sure to reach out to me if you would like to be on the podcast. Would love to hear your stories and share your story with the Starlight Express fans and other alumni. Look forward to sharing with you next week. Everyone, have a great day.